So in today's video we're going to show you how to use the Premier Sweep In Grout on our Lifestyle Range pavers. This is the Unipave 60mm in ironstone colour, and got to make sure that the paving is really dry. That's super important before you start to sweep in the Sweep In Grout, because it is a cement based grout, so if the paving is moist or damp you'll end up with staining on the top of the paving. So you can see some of the tools that you need here: the broom, the plate compactor and things like that. So the Sweep In Grout will be swept in, and then the plate compactor gets run over the top to compact the pavers down and bed them in, but also to rattle in the Sweep In Grout in between the joints. Another update on the Premier Sweep In Grout part of the project. So start to sweep it in really thoroughly. Obviously wearing a dust mask is highly recommended. There's lots of dust, especially on a windy day like this. And away we go. Lots of sweeping in on different angles, and then after this the plate compactor, the guys will run the plate compactor over it to start to compact the pavers in, bed them into the bedding sand, but also to rattle in, vibrate in the sand in between the joints, so you get a really thorough filling of the grouting joints between the pavers. These pavers have little lugs on the side of them which help to keep them, little spaces to keep them apart, to provide that little grouting gap. So I'll come down closer here so you can kind of see that up close and see how that looks. There we go. And then as you start sweeping, you see the sand starts to go in, but it's the vibration process with the plate compactor that makes all the difference. So it's important to keep working it in as much as possible. Fill as many of the gaps as you can with the broom before you run the plate compactor over it. And just want to reiterate how important it is to make sure the paving is all dry, completely dry, before you put the Sweep In Grout on. Otherwise it will stick to the surface of the paving and stain your paving. If this does happen, generally will wear off after time with foot traffic, or it can be cleaned up with an acid wash, but preferably that is not the preferred option. So just making sure the paving is nice and dry before sweeping in. So we're back with an update. So now the compactor is running, plate compactor is running across at a 90-degree angle. So hitting these two different angles to make sure that the paving is bedded in nice and evenly and firmly, and that the Sweep In Grout is vibrated down between the joints thoroughly. I'll take a closer look now. So there you go. You can see that grout's really getting in there. Okay, so we've got the plate compactor going and some sweeping as well. A really windy day, so there's lots of dust blowing around. So if you've got neighbours nearby, it'd be better to choose a still day. Thankfully there's no neighbours on this property. You can see that grout's really getting down into those joints now, thanks to the compactor. So he'll do several passes on the compactor in different directions to bed the pavers in and to really vibrate that grout in till all the joints are filled. With an update, the area is all compacted, and now the final sweep down has been pretty much done. Just tidying off the last few bits here. Looking really good. Now that it's all compacted and swept in with the final sweep in, the next step is to spray it down with water And I'm just going to show you right up close how full those joints are now. You can see they're pretty much all topped up nice and evenly, and that's what you want. So we're back with an update and starting to spray in the paving. Important to get really thorough coverage, and then also any really sticky areas, if there's any areas like you can see right there, they need to be scrubbed off with the sponge as you go. So the water will soak down in between the joints, and the cement and polymers in the sweep and grout will start to go off, start to cure. So it creates a chemical reaction, and as soon as the water hits them, they start to cure. And it's a good idea to leave it 48 hours if you can before driving on, even longer if you've got the luxury of doing that, because any cement based product continues to cure, and it reaches its kind of strongest cure in 30 days, and then carries on getting stronger over time. But a lot of people use their paving after 48 hours once the grouting is complete. And then a nice big wide broom as well to keep brooming down after this, or during this second spray down. So that just makes sure we get any residue off before it goes hard and before it sets in the sun. Again, just reducing that risk of staining, or reducing the amount of staining that's going to be left on the pavers after it all dries out. So the brooming reduces the amount of water that we need to put on it as well, which is great, because the less water we put on now, the less aggressive we are with that, the better, because every time we spray we're washing a little bit more grout out of the joints. So using the broom really helps to keep pushing that residue away and reduces the amount of water that we need to use. Next step is just to go over again with the hose and just go down a little bit closer to the paving and just blow off any of the sort of cement and polymers that are stuck on the surface. So it'll just give you a bit of a cleaner surface. It will wash out a little bit of the grout in the surface, like a little bit of the fines as well out of the grout joints, but it is generally will give you a better result doing this second round of spraying with the water, and just means less risk of, or less staining on the surface of the paving. Also remember that once it all dries out and you have, if there is staining on the surface, which there generally is a little bit, it will wear off with foot traffic and or vehicle traffic, depending on what you're using your paving for, over time. So it's a good idea just to get as much off as you can in the initial grouting process like this. You can see it's already drying out over here from the first spray, so we'll go right over and get all of this with a second spray. So it's important to get on quickly and scrub off with a sponge and some water any sticky patches that have remained once you've compacted in the grout. That might be just from some moist paving or some little areas that are a little bit damp, especially in the winter time. Really hard to get the patio completely dry. Important to wash down any surfaces that may have got dust all over them as well, like the installer is doing right now, washing down the house as you go with plenty of water if the wind has blown up the grout onto the house. Otherwise you could get some cement stains and things on the hard surfaces around. So you can see really good coverage, really thorough. As I say, that water will keep seeping down, soaking down between the paving and causing the grout to start to cure and start to harden up.